Good morning. Before discussing the specific recommendations of the report, I want to quickly identify the guiding principles we used in developing the report. The first principle is adaptive management. We believe there is still much to learn. Technologies and techniques will continue to evolve, and in time we will gain a better understanding of how deep shale gas extraction will affect our environmental and community resources. Pennsylvania's management program should be proactive, and changes must occur in short order. But this should not preclude revisiting the regulatory program as new understandings develop. The second principle is informed decision-making. Many of our recommendations do not require new command and control restrictions. Rather, they position improved information and assessment standards. If utilized, we firmly believe these standards will benefit the environment, communities, industry, and the Department of Environmental Protection. The third principle is comprehensive planning. There are opportunities for members of the industry and department to work together to evaluate long-term regional impacts before individual permits are authorized. We believe every effort should be made to assess cumulative impacts from proposed well development, and that local interests be given a better opportunity to inform the decision-making process. The final principle is the concept of best management practices. Statutes and regulations can only go so far. It is essential that all members of the industry adopt and employ high operational standards. It is equally important that the department fully and consistently apply the law. With so much at stake, every small step is significant. With that basis, I'd like to highlight, as Don said, the most fundamental recommendations contained in our report. Many will require that new authority be granted to the Department of Environmental Protection. We believe, however, that these changes are essential for effective management of Marcellus Shale development in Pennsylvania. The first recommendation promotes comprehensive planning. As we learned at our conference, other experienced shale gas states like Colorado utilize an advanced planning and permit process that affords a more complete assessment of environmental considerations, as well as greater community involvement. In this process, one or more operators may voluntarily choose to work with the department for review of proposed well operations and infrastructure on a regional basis. While it does not and should not supplant individual site assessment, it does provide all parties with greater understanding and certainty. It can also expedite subsequent permitting decisions. We believe this is a promising approach which merits consideration in Pennsylvania. In the site assessment and permitting process, Pennsylvania can and should do better. Comprehensive planning is one means to this end, but the department should also incorporate stronger ecological and social criteria in the permitting process. Other regulatory programs administered by the department require special protections or even prohibit permit approval when proposed activities will occur in proximity to sensitive resources. One example would be public drinking water reservoirs, where even one accident can have irreparable consequences. The standards applied to natural gas extraction should be no different. Greater site information must be obtained during the permit process, including the character of public or private water supplies in proximity to proposed well sites, as well as the presence of abandoned wells or mines which may serve as pathways for methane migration or water contamination. We recommend that the department institute a two-phase permitting process. The first phase would be focused on obtaining and documenting site-specific information and would culminate in a determination by the department that the site is appropriate for well development. The second phase would be authorization to commence well drilling activities and the siting of well infrastructure. While this two-phase permit process requires greater effort, with proper planning, the first proposed phase can occur before the scheduled mobilization of drilling equipment. It also affords landowners and operators with greater assurance as to environmental conditions in proximity to the well site. Once activities commence, a new set of recommendations come into play for managing well operations. The techniques used for Marcellus Shale wells, including underground injection of fracking materials and recovery of natural gas at high pressure, warrant improved casing and cementing standards. We support the department's proposed rulemaking that requires new material and design specifications, as well as performance testing for casing and cementing at well sites. Consistent with our principle of adaptive management, if subsequent contamination or blowout events prove that even greater standards are necessary, the department should quickly work to strengthen the regulatory requirements. Given that the average Marcellus well uses between 2 to 7 million gallons of water per well, it is critical that Pennsylvania has a comprehensive and consistent water management program. Unfortunately, we are far from that goal. The department does not have authority to manage large-scale water withdrawals. The need is especially important in the western part of the state, which, unlike the Susquehanna or Delaware River basins, is not subject to an interstate commission which administers withdrawals. In fact, the Susquehanna River Basin Commission has proactively worked with industry to establish a very effective review process for Marcellus Shale activities, one that accounts for cumulative impacts, ecological flow analysis, and open information sharing. We believe it is essential that the department be granted authority to establish a similar program for the Ohio River Basin. Once transported to a well site, water is stored and used for hydraulic fracturing. Pennsylvania has already experienced numerous incidents of leaked or spilled treated and wastewaters, and the reality is that critical information gaps exist in relation to surface and groundwater near well sites, including drinking water supplies. Greater pre-drilling information gathered during the two-tiered permit phase, as recommended in our report, combined with enhanced surface and groundwater monitoring for the duration of well operations, are necessary to protect our aquatic resources. While the industry is making significant strides in reusing wastewater, the sheer growth of well development and wastewater volumes require strong standards to protect our waterways. Public wastewater and drinking water treatment facilities do not have the capacity to treat the high amount of total dissolved solids in Marcellus Shale wastewater. Our report supports the department's final rulemaking, which sets an industry-wide standard for total dissolved solids, and note that other states have followed suit or even applied stricter standards. Although this may be viewed by some as a blunt instrument, unless and until better assimilated capacity data is collected for our waterways, more than 19,000 miles of which do not meet clean water standards, there is no other workable option for Pennsylvania. Looking ahead, the current financial assurance mechanism for well decommissioning is woefully inadequate. Although legislation has been introduced to raise required bonding levels, we recommend a different structure be adopted, one that has been successfully used by the department in the surface mining program, the trust fund. The trust fund concept, which in essence requires owners and operators to pay into the trust at a level equal with their current extent of well activity, provides much greater assurance that sufficient funds will be available to the Commonwealth in the event a well owner or operator defaults on its regulations. Although time doesn't allow us to detail each recommendation in the report, please let me conclude with this fundamental message. We only have one chance to get Marcellus Shale development right, and the time to do so is very limited. With that said, we welcome any questions you have at this time on the